Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into a grim, dark, gothic fable that serves as a really profound warning about the traps we set for ourselves using our own intellect. We're going to be exploring a deeply nihilistic narrative, one that synthesizes heavy Nietzschean philosophy with some serious existential dread. It's essentially a story about a seeker who discovers the absolute, terrifying freedom of the universe, and instead of embracing it, gets so scared that they use that exact freedom to build themselves a cage.
The seeker has gazed into the abyss and used its indifference to construct an internal prison. Okay, so let's really unpack this chilling concept because it perfectly sets the stage for our entire philosophical descent. This establishes the core tragedy we're dealing with here. You see, the abyss isn't inherently evil in this story, it's simply indifferent. But rather than using that blank slate to create some kind of meaning, the intellect actually weaponizes the void to lock itself away.
Section 1. Realm of the Shadow Sovereign and the Uncanny Valley.
We start our journey way down in the subterranean depths of the Uncanny Valley. This is an inverted realm where the mountain's peak points toward the Earth's burning core and the ceiling acts as this incredibly heavy floor. Here reigns the Shadow Sovereign, or Das Dämonische, who represents the absolute terminal stage of this downward spiral. In Nietzschean terms, this is an Untergang, a downward going. But here's the catch. Unlike a healthy philosophy where you go under just to eventually rise up transformed, the Shadow Sovereign embraces the darkness as a permanent home, cementing his own intellectual despair right into the architecture of his mind.
He is the Übermensch of the mirror, a dark, distorted reflection of human potential. He rules over a really cold, violet twilight. And what's wild about his twisted reality is that up is literally down. The only path to what he calls ascension is actually a dizzying, terrifying climb further into the lightless deep. For him, self-actualization just means sinking deeper into total isolation.
Section 2. The Silverhammer's Cynical Economy. To understand how this kingdom drains the spirit, we have to talk about the parable of the silver hammer and this cruel mechanism of intellectual salvaging. Picture this. You've just had a profound lived experience, a hard-won victory. That's your gold of stories. Well, the daemon stalks people with recent victories. He's a predator of potential. He takes that vibrant, chaotic joy of living and uses his silver hammer to smelt it flat, turning your vibrant gold into the dead, heavy lead of mortality just to fuel his lonely throne.
And this whole cynical economy, it thrives on total stagnation. The intellect here doesn't want you to evolve. It views your past memories as these heavy monuments to permanence, rather than stepping stones for personal growth. The goal is to ensure your spirit remains completely heavy and static. I mean, think about it. If you are weighed down with leaden memories, you literally cannot move forward.
Section 3. Prisons of Lead and Gold. Taking on the tragic role of the Knight of Memory, the Sovereign enforces a ritual of spiritual entropy. Why? To cure what he sees as the dangerous fever of reckless freedom. He hoards the sparks of human potential, he calls them the brilliance of stars, and locks them securely away in leaden boxes. But light needs space to shine, right? Trapped in the dark, that brilliant light just turns into crumbling dust, proving that his demand for absolute possession is effectively the extinction of life.
He fiercely guards this iron threshold, teaching his followers that the crushing weight of the past is the only acceptable fuel for a kingdom that refuses to move. It paints a brilliantly grim picture, a grand quest where the ultimate prize, the Grail, is intentionally kept empty. He wants the seeker to just give up the search entirely and sit with the heavy, unchangeable burden of what has already happened.
And here we hit the Pharisees' paradox. For those who are terrified of the indifferent universe, the Sovereign offers a really tempting deal. He promises absolute security and absolute truths. But the hidden reality, it's a gilded cage. That so-called protective armor he offers is actually just the suffocating weight of ancient memory, designed to keep your soul frozen and totally subservient.
By pushing this logic of the crucible, he convinces the weary soul that avoiding the transformative fire of suffering and just staying entirely frozen is the only true form of safety. It's incredibly deceptive. It tells you that if you never risk the heat of genuine emotional or spiritual transformation, you can never get burned. But by completely avoiding that fire, you deny yourself the very essence of becoming.
Section 4. The Climax of Despair, the Violet Verdict. Our narrative descent now reaches its terrifying climax When the violet gavel finally strikes, the sheer weight of the internal void expands violently. It completely crushes the individual's foundational gods of memory, reason, and will. The very intellectual tools used to build this internal prison are just obliterated by the massive, expansive emptiness they invited in. Reason and will are completely shattered.
Following that verdict, the individual actually mutates into a man-beast. This is a grim, forced synthesis where, stripped of higher reasoning, the mind just falls back on feral survival while still retaining this torturous, Faustinian awareness of its own despair. It leaves the sovereign to bear an unbearable crimson burden of self-judgment. There is absolutely no external god coming to save him. He is entirely responsible for his own damnation.
Think about the symbolism of his fur shifting to this twilight violet-blue hue. It perfectly captures his soul caught in an impossible tension. On one hand, there's this deep desire to just negate existence entirely, and on the other, an absolute paralyzing terror of actually taking responsibility and creating meaning.
Section 5. The Crimson Sentinel.
This horrifying transition brings us to his final, most tragic form. Having realized he is totally, utterly alone in the abyss, this internal atavism now stalks the stagnant mud of the herd. With the glowing eyes of one who murdered God, he actively drags other evolving souls down into his depths. Instead of bearing his isolation quietly, he wants company in his intellectual despair.
And that's his ultimate tragedy, right there. He uses his absolute power to ensure no one ever performs the grave dance of joyful affirmation. He is terrified of the spirit of becoming, that chaotic, wild, unpredictable nature of real growth. He would much rather entomb that spirit in a leaden box and deny everyone the unpredictable stars of a truly dancing life. The ultimate freedom of the universe's indifference is best used to build a perfect leaden prison. In the uncanny mirror, this is his final, deeply cynical revelation. He looks at an existence without preordained meaning and decides that this limitless freedom is just way too much to handle. So he uses his own brilliance not to soar, but to architect an inescapable cage. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. What internal prisons might you be building to shield yourself from the beautiful, unpredictable freedom of your own potential? The Shadow Sovereign is a dark, cautionary tale. Are you entombing your own spirit of becoming just to hide from the reckless freedom of a truly dancing life? Because ultimately, it's up to us to ensure we use our intellect not to forge a leaden mirror of despair, but to boldly embrace the joy of becoming.